All right, CNT125, Network Management and Wireless Lab. Make sure you do read through the lab, take some notes, watch any podcasts before getting in the lab room. We're getting to the point of the semester where these labs get a little bit longer, so a little bit of prep ahead of time will benefit and allow you to use your lab time more efficiently. So what we're going to do, let me scroll down here. We'll need to subnet. We'll get to that in just a minute. We are going to build a network where we can support wireless users. We're not going to hook up phones, but we're going to build the network to support phones and employee users. So we're going to build a network to support all these. Then we'll add the wireless access point in, and then we will add the network management configuration in last. So we're kind of doing a couple pieces on this one. We're pulling some things together we've learned previously, and then implementing some wireless as well as a little bit of network management on the end too. So, taking a look, we're going to have a router connected out to the college or ISP, and then we'll have our switch connected to the router. And then for these different VLANs down here, VLAN 10, 20, 30, we will need sub-interfaces and DHCP scopes for each of those VLANs. So that's what we're seeing up here. So, to get us started, we definitely need at least 4 subnets, because we need one for VLAN 1, the default, a subnet for VLAN 10, a subnet for VLAN 20, and a subnet for VLAN 30. So we need at least 4 subnets to make this work. So up here, let's get started. Let me get my notation tool here. And we need at least 4 subnets to get the job done. Now, we can borrow 2 bits to get that done. We can borrow 3 and have a couple extra subnets. We can borrow 4, have a bunch of extra subnets. This time I think I'm going to borrow 5 because we have not done that in a while. We'll have plenty of extra subnets. We'll still have plenty of addresses. But that'll give us a different set of numbers to look at that we haven't looked at in a while. So this time I'm going to do 5. So with 2 to the 5 bits borrowed, we'll end up having 32 subnets. Okay. 2 bits would be 4 subnets, 3 would be 8, 4, 16, 5, 32. We're doubling until we get to that number. So over here, our default subnet mask for this guy was 255.255.0.0, and the default was /16. Okay, this is a private address, so /16. We're going to borrow 5 bits. So this is going to become /21. We just add 5 bits to that. And then here, this octet, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that is what our octet here will be. There's the 5 bits borrowed. So if I just convert that into decimal, I get 248.0. There will be our subnet mask for this. Now, there are 3 bits left in this octet plus 8. So we have 11 bits. So 2 to the 11 will be how many addresses per subnet we have. So we'll pull our calculator up real quick. 2x to the y 11 is going to give us 2048. We'll have over here 2048 addresses per subnet, of which 2046 will be usable. Okay, so there's our initial planning. Down here, let's do our 3rd octet, because that's where the subnetting is, 3rd octet. So here's my 3rd octet. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's our borrow bits right there. We've borrowed over to we've borrowed the 128 place, the 64, the 32, 16, out to the 8. We've borrowed to the 8 place. So our subnets are going to go up by a factor of 8. So 0, 8, 16, 24, 32, 40, and so forth. Over here, broadcast, if this starts at 0, this one starts at 8, this first one up here has to end at 7. If this one starts at 16, this one has to end at 15. This one has to end at 23. This has to end at 31. This has to end at 39. Okay, so there's the 3rd octets. Let's tag on the 4th octet. So over here in the network number, 0 in the host portion will be your network numbers. So I can literally just tag on .0 for all of these, and that'll be my network numbers. And then for the broadcast, all ones in the host portion, so I would tag on 255 for the host octet over here. Now usables, one more, one less, one more than this side, one less than this side. So 192.168.0.1. Increment the far right number, far right column, if you will. 192.168.8.1. 192.168.16.1. 192.168.24.1. 192.168.32.1. Whoops. 32.1. 192.168.40.1. Over here, we're going to do one less than this column. So 192.168. 7.255 is what's there. One less would be 254. 192.168. 15.255 is what's over here in this column. One less would be 254. Just run a little fumble finger in there. There we go. 192.168. 23.255 is what's over there. One less would be 254. 192.168. 31.255 is what's on the right column. One less would be 254. That's an easy way to make sure you're not subtracting or anything the wrong way. Just copy that over and then just subtract one right there. Okay? So there is my subnetting chart done. Let me save this real quick as my markup. I'm going to save this as my markup. That way I know this is the one that I have marked up. There we go. Now that we have our subnetting done and our usable addresses, we now have the usable addresses we can use on our network map. So this time I actually included a little box up here for subnets just to help with planning. So I'm going to put my subnets right across the top first, and then I have hopefully all the numbers I need to make this work. So I'm going to use 00 subnet 80 16.0 24.0. So this subnet up here for VLAN 1 will be the 192.168.0.0 subnet. And I will use the 192.168.8.0 subnet for the employees, 192.168.16.0 for voice, and 192.168.24.0 for wireless. So now that I know that, I have that, there's my game plan. Now I can fill this in with first usables. So remember with VLANs, we're going to be doing sub-interfaces on the router, a sub-interface for each VLAN. So the sub-interface for VLAN 1, we're using the 0 subnet here, so the usable would be 0.1. And our subnet mask for all these is going to be our 255, 255, 248.0. So I'm just going to highlight that so I can copy that. Over here is going to be 8.1 for the sub-interface, and there's my subnet mask. 16.1 for the sub-interface, there's my subnet mask, and then 24.1 for that sub-interface, there's my subnet mask. Now, we're going to leave VLAN 1 static. It's the admin VLAN. We're not going to hand any IP addresses out. We're going to leave that static. For the employee VLAN, the voice VLAN, and wireless VLAN, we're going to create DHCP scopes. So it hands out IP addresses. So here I need to indicate my network and then the default router. Well, the network is right there. There's my subnet. So this will be the 80 network. The subnet mask is this 248. So here's a subnet mask. I'll just paste it there. The default router will be 8.1. It's going to be the sub-interface right here, 8.1. For my voice VLAN, 16.0 is going to be the network. 16.1 will be the gateway. Here's our subnet mask. And then for the option 150, it'll be 16.1. That tells the phones where to get their phone configuration from. Again, we're not going to plug phones in, but we're configuring the network as if we would be. Okay, we're going to configure the network as if we would be. Over here in the wireless network, it's going to be 24.0, and the default router will be 24.1. And here's our subnet mask. Okay, we do need one or two more IPs down here. So scrolling down, the switch IP we're going to set on VLAN 1. So VLAN 1 we're using 0.1 for the router interface. For the switch we need to use 0.2. So we don't have any conflicts. Again, here's my subnet mask. There it is. There's all the VLANs on the switch. We also need an IP address for the access point. Well, the access point is going to be in VLAN, the wireless VLAN. Okay. The router is going to be 24.1. So I'm going to say we can do 24. Let's do 24.3. If we were assigning an IP here for the switch, it would be 24.2. So I'm just going to do 24.3 to kind of like be safe. All right. There's the subnet mask. We'll put the subnet mask there. And the default gateway for this guy will be 24.1. That'll be the gateway. The only other thing we need is eventually we're going to hook a PC into VLAN 1 to do some management work. So this PC needs to be in VLAN 1, over here, VLAN 1. So it needs to be in the 00 subnet. Well, we're using 01 for the router, 02 for the switch. Let's do 010 here, just like we would a regular client node. Here's the subnet mask. And then 0.1 will be the gateway. That's the router interface. And that should be our game plan that we now have in place that we can use to make our network. So what I wanted to do, either bring a copy of this to the lab room. Those of you that are taking pictures of mine, it's going to catch up to you later when you have to do this on your own. So make sure you're doing your own. You can follow along with me, but make sure you're doing your own. I'm going to do a screen capture of this, so I have this for doing my lab. So I'm just going to do this, and I'll save that and make sure it's handy for doing my lab. Go to Documents, 125, Network Management Lab, and I'll save it right there, and then it'll be handy. All right. When we come back on the next podcast, we're going to configure the switch and the router with the basics, and then we'll get into adding the wireless, network management, etc.